18. She is now Presidential Advisor of CTE. She manages the process of audit after managing quality assurance processes. She is in charge of working group quality assurance and accreditation in SAFE, and she is the member of label committee of ENAEE, allowing the delivery of a Euro ACE label by agency. It's a label of quality for engineering study. She is expert in European Commission, Erasmus Mundus master degrees in the Swiss and Belgium accreditation agency. She devotes a lot of time encouraging girls or ladies to engineering, both at regional level in North France and Center France, and at national level. I am really delighted to welcome you, Professor Judy.
First, thanks a lot for this invitation. During this today, I learned many things that I could then discuss in France with the people which I work. But this night, I will be about not my experience as a full professor at university, but about the job I occupy in CTI. CTI is an accreditation agency for engineers. You know, in France, you cannot be engineer diplômé, if you if you are not graduate from an institution accredited by CTI. And CTI is not only academic people like me, but it's half academic people, half people from companies. And so this experience is really interesting because we can be sure that what we do manage as well academy as companies. And so in the CTI, we have criteria for accreditation, and we have changed those criteria last month. And it's interesting to see what are the things related to Industrie 4.0, which are in those criteria. Our criteria are divided in 3 categories. The first one is about scientific and technical knowledge. And this category includes resolution of unfamiliar problems or incompletely defined one, or use of numerical approaches, introduction to research and to the practice of collaborative work. So we are completely in the center of the process of we described since yesterday. And then the second point is the adaptation to the specific requirements of the company and of the society. And this includes the point of view linked to sustainable development, ethics, and also economic intelligence and business acumen. And the third point is taking account the organizational, personal, and cultural dimension. And it includes what we sometimes call soft skill, the ability to communicate with specialists as well as non-specialists, and this point is very important. Involvement in entrepreneurial projects, adaptation to international context, ability to self-assess and to manage one's skills. And all those points, it's what I took from the criteria of CTI. That is to say that when we go into institutions to evaluate them, we look at those points. And I think that it is really important because we are not creating a completely new society. You have to manage with things that exist already and to make them progress. And so it's very important to see which criteria are applied to the schools that exist now. And we think that with those criteria, we can manage things because it is not evident for a dean of an institution to manage this institution not knowing the jobs that engineers will occupy in 50 years. And so managing an institution is something really risky because we don't know who will be the customers of our institution in a very short time. And we can think that engineering has had, I can say perhaps it's not revolution, but evolutions, because we are always in evolutions, and for a long time. And this information revolution, with everybody which is networked and have to work as huge brain. It's something new, but it happened in a shorter time than the previous revolutions. The difference, I think, is in the period of time occurring between all these events. But people began to work on this field, and especially first I will speak about what we call digital skills. About digital skills, we had the idea to know what was the point in French School of Engineers. There are 200 schools of engineers accredited, and this represents about 1,000 different programs. And we asked to this school last year how many had mandatory digital education. And it was 700 of them, that is to say about 3/4, that had mandatory digital education. This is not so bad, because, you know, in this school, you have what we have discussed about things linked to digital, but also schools that make chemistry, biology, and so on. And so the fact that all the managers of school, nearly all, are concerned by this digital revolution is something that is a good thing. And we also asked to the school last year how new pedagogies were put in place. And they were put in place in 300 programs. And these pedagogies were all, as well use of Moodle, but also of Spock, MOOCs, virtual classes, serious games. So things are beginning to change in the school. But we are convinced that we must help the school in this revolution. And so we have asked a specific focus on what happens in school this year, that had begun in this February. But we go not only to contents of the program, but we want to know if the schools have the spirit, the digital spirit. So it includes 4 items. What has been put in place as educational innovations in link with digital. Contents of the program, because, you know, what is very interested is the fact all of us speak of digital, but at the same time, when I go in the secondary school to discuss with young girls, they told me, I want to make chemistry because I will not have to make digital. And it is something very surprising that this year you have still people don't understanding that they will have to make digital even if they make chemistry. And the third point of the focus is the evolution of the management under digital influence, and also the evolution of the job targeted by the graduates. So we want to know on all those points how school evolve. And the idea is not only to have a global point of view, but also to make all stakeholders convinced of the real importance of digital in education. So this industrial revolution concerns many different points, and not only the digital aspect, because if we have to deal with big data, learning analytics, artificial intelligence, it concerns also the forms of work, and especially what concerns innovation and entrepreneurship. And the conference before was very interesting because, you know, engineers are more and more concerned by those points. We can say first that we observe that schools have already preparing their new teachings to the factory of the future. We can quote Arts et Métiers, Mines de Saint-Étienne, INSA Strasbourg, and many other ones. It's a real point, very interesting, because as the factory of the future goes further than technical aspects, And it is very important to know this because we could think that making digital is enough. No, I think that Factory of the Future is very, very larger movement than digital aspect. Digital is on one point, but not the only point. And we think that the fact that in France, in a School of Engineering, we have a mix of soft skills and technical skills, this characterizes French engineers, is completely interesting in the preparation of engineers in respect with other models that do not include soft skills in the education of engineers. First, it was said in the P model, it's necessary to have interdisciplinarity. Interdisciplinarity is fundamental point to innovate, and when I was in textile institution, I was really convinced of this because in those kind of disciplines, you have at the same time chemistry and digital science, and innovation is very much in textile industry. There is a necessity of collaboration of a very large field of science, and the people must, when they want to develop new products, have open mind, consider all the world around them. And we can quote many innovations that are developed even by disruption, even by observing the society and the way that people live, such as the method used in design. Second point is diversity. Diversity is very important for the new model of engineers. In France, many people develop this diversity through new process for learning. You know, apprenticeship is very developing in engineering education. Also, we develop alternative entry gates for education of engineers, because for a company, it's very important to reflect the diversity of the society. And this model, which includes all kinds of people, is very important for innovation. And from this point of view, I insist because, as you know, in France, we are not so many girls wanting to make mechanics or computer science, that it's an important point for the future, and especially for the Factory of the Future, to develop girls in engineering. So École des Arts et Métiers has much invested on those points, and you have a slide which is a production of this work of École des Arts et Métiers, Paris and SAM, on this point. The new fields of works are not all known at this moment. You have human-machine interaction, social robotics, autonomous systems, smart logistics, business computing. But you can have also some mix of two fields that I have quoted, and this will develop a new field. And engineers have to be prepared to this new field. The second point is adaptability to fast innovation cycles, because knowledge has a shorter and shorter life duration, and students need less specialized knowledge, but they need the ability to continuously develop knowledge. So they need to learn to learn. And it's very important, and now we learn students with methods different from what they were in 10 years ago. For example, agile methods like Scrum to develop computer science programs. The digital skill, we already spoke about this. Yes, it is one of the drivers, but not the only driver. We have the fact that we have entrepreneurship revolution. That is to say that now the entrepreneur, engineer, must be connected to a global village and have the collaborative partnership to develop and to make outsource of information. So it's really different because before he was alone, and this design is very interesting because we see from a long time how entrepreneurship developed. So the people have to be is to be able to be collaborating with all those people. So we develop those skills because the new engineers have to be developed in engaging projects with diverse and non-technical stakeholders. And this is very important because we think that communicating on people having the same culture is something nearly easy, not for all, but nearly easy. But to be able to discuss with non-technical people is something very important to develop new projects. So they will be able to collaborate in the global village, and they will have to be equipped also with international communication skills. That is something CTI is very, very suspicious about school, so that students go abroad and have an international culture. We have also new forms of work because this work is developed around new tools, and we have, especially it was the beginning when I was in this textile school, we were beginning to make sport shoes for customers, individual sport shoes, and now in many types of products, we develop those products driven by the customer. So we have to develop transport unit, production unit, virtual service provider, logistics, and manufacturing. And so all those jobs are different, and they have specific skills that will be those developed by the school. And sometimes it will be necessary for students to change their position and to change their job and to go from one of these jobs to another one. So it is necessary at the moment to make decisions. And the difficulty is now that the world is changing, and making a decision, it's impossible to make it in a complete security. And they have to make decisions based on hypotheses and assumptions. And this way is very important to develop this knowledge for students. It's necessary to learn the student to be able to make predictions, to decide, to not with complete knowledge of the situation. So it's a specific science and something that must be learned to students. And because the engineer of the future must be comfortable to take measured risk, and he must be able to reassess his decision upon receiving new information. I was speaking about the method Scrum, which is this, because when you receive new information, you develop your project in another direction. This is something really new in the education, and societies insist that we teach our students in this way and not in the old way. One of the points that was developed also previously is creativity. Creativity is something very important, and school develop projects where creativity can emerge, and they have to simultaneously have rationality and creativity. This is not evident because very often when you have students with creativity, they are less rational, and it's natural to have the two legs and at the same time to be rational and creative. So it's necessary to develop critical thinking, design thinking. They must develop solutions that are at the same time ethical, rational, creative. This is real new knowledge, and this is not so evident to educate students in this way. And this is this is so important that we have developed in the engineer curricula a specific focus on sustainable development, ethics, and social responsibility. And the strong point also is the fact that some of the engineers will not work for society and societies. That is to say that we know that some of them will be freelancer, which is a new job that be working for SME or great enterprise and so on. It's a job which is flexible, specialist, linked, not for all the engineers, but some will have to develop this job. So we have to be prepared in their soft skills to be able to work in this way. And particularly, some engineers will have to work for multiple societies. That is to say, some will work for 3 or 4 different employers, being independent workers. So this is something that is preparing also during education, because people have need some information on the law, on many things to prepare for this kind of employment. So you know, it's a great job for the schools and especially for their professors. It is not so evident because we are what we are, and we have to keep an open mind to develop ability to adapt ourselves, because these concepts are new. It's a new way of teaching because we are much more tutors than teachers, and it's necessary to stay critical to be able to adapt to digital native students, to be able to develop fit-to-me teachings. The business model of university will have to change, and it's necessary to build alternative paths and to build certifications through MOOCs, and also to use new way of evaluations of students, such as learning data analytics. And all this is a real challenge for the schools and for their teachers.
Thank you, Professor Joly. Our second speaker is Mr. Nicolas Rouhana. Dr. Rouhana is currently the general manager of IM Capital, a $20 million fund under USAID MENA investment initiative, providing matching capital, equity guarantee, and technical assistance to early-stage businesses and investors in Lebanon. Between 2002 and 2015, Dr. Rouhana was the executive director of Beirut Technological Pole, counseling and mentoring Lebanese entrepreneurs in their startup ventures. Since 2008, he's also the senior technical advisor to Beirut Fund, an entity investing in Lebanese technology startups. Dr. Rouhana was associate professor at USIB and the administrator of Beirut Internet Exchange Point till 2015. He is currently vice president of Internet Society Lebanon chapter and a board member at Beirut and chairman of Speed Seed Accelerator. Dr. Rouhana holds a telecommunication engineering degree from St. Joseph University, USIB, and a PhD in networking system from Université Pierre et Marie Curie in Paris. He is also an ADP graduate of INSEAD, France. I am very happy to welcome you.
Hi everyone. Thanks to the committee for this opportunity, and thank you all for staying with us that late. I have a small disclaimer. I had another presentation prepared with technical, and what is required from the engineers, etc. Based on my previous life, I was 25 years professor at USG, and then I quit. But then something happened a couple of days ago, and I changed completely the talk. And what happened was, Uber, Uber? Yeah, we bought Karim. Yeah. So this is, I think, it's something to reflect on. And these are stuff that happen. We think that they happen in Silicon Valley, in San Francisco on the other side of the Atlantic. But then, they happen here. So I thought we said let's reflect together on what it takes to have the next unicorn, because that's what they call a multi-billion-dollar company, a unicorn. So really, what it takes to have a unicorn, and so. I mean, can Lebanon have its own valley, like Silicon Valley, Valley? So let's think about this for a moment. And I'll not go through all of those points, but first of all is obviously the tech entrepreneurs. Yeah, so we need tech entrepreneurs. And what better deal flow for tech entrepreneurs who come from universities and obviously engineers, because this is the tech part of things. And so it's natural for an engineer, to be part of a startup, because it's a technology startup we're talking about, and this is stuff that they know about. Obviously, when you ask an engineer, do you want to what prevents you to do a startup? He tells you money. I need money. It's not true, and I'll show you a slide where you will be dazzled with all the zeros around in Lebanon. So money is not an issue, and I'll come back to that in a moment. So money, venture funding is there, believe me. Risk-taking, obviously, when you're an engineer and you get out of, you can only take risk because you have nothing to lose, right? You get out, you have still nothing to lose, you don't have a family. So obviously, if you're an engineer and you have students here, think about it for a moment. You have nothing to lose, yeah? So you can take risk. And obviously, they say Lebanese, they take risks. It's in DNAs, etc. Phoenicians, and we take risks and whatever. So it's in our genes. Think about it. I'll skip attractiveness, etc. to bring back all of this is again to limit the brain drain. Yeah. So voila. And what happens is that in universities, obviously, we need to discuss entrepreneurship. And as Hani said, in his classes, there is a course on entrepreneurship, because in the schools, in universities, the faculty or the university takes pride in saying employability of our engineers. We're preparing them to get employed. Fine. But what about the entrepreneurability of the engineers? Because when I talk to an engineer, and by the way, lots of universities now in Lebanon are talking entrepreneurship. So I give lectures in engineering at UZIP about startups, at AUB and UZEC. So there are attempts to talk about entrepreneurability. And this is when we talk to engineers about startups and entrepreneurship. This is like Chinese to them. And because it's an art, it's not a science. They're used to the integral, cosinus, sinus, etc., which is not there in entrepreneurship, and they're lost. What is this? It's like Chinese to them, and it's very hard. And when I tell them, the easiest part of a startup is to develop the product. It's the easiest part. It's a no-brainer. You can develop any app or any product. You can do it. But then try to go and sell it, and try to do the rest, manage a team, etc. This is the hardest part, is bringing this to the market and sustaining the business. This is super hard. This is the hardest part. The easiest part is the technology, is the engineering thing, the easiest part. And believe me, I know what I'm talking about. So think about it. Entrepreneurability of the engineers, not the employability. And by the way, employability, why not go and work in a startup? Working in Karim, if you worked in Karim, it's cool. I've been bought by Uber, so it gives pride, again, to work in a startup. Something about, and when I talk about it, they laugh, is the weather. Can we have a Silicon Valley type? Weather is key, and you might laugh about it, but if we were in Alaska, it's not easy to have a valley or to retain or attract talent. So, weather is something that's cool. Obviously, the rest, infrastructure, good internet and what have you, obviously this has to be there. Legal framework, there's still stuff to be done, but this is, outside our scope. We cannot do anything about it. We have to have the parliaments and the ministers to do something about it, but it's getting there. It's getting there. Science parks for startups, so again, having clusters. So universities now are creating incubators, accelerators, etc., and these types of infrastructure to start, these startups in these facilities. So we have the Beirut Digital District as well, where the clusters are there. So you can rub shoulders with other startups, and they're doing similar things. So it motivates, these types of startups. And by the way, like universities, education is something that we're used to education. Universities and and schools. So it's typical. We need to have the same mindset in all the others, that such as incubators, accelerators, need to be there, need to be as vulgarized and democratized as universities. You know, you go to a university and you get a degree, you go through accelerator or an incubator and you get a startup. You know, so this is something that needs to be as democratized and vulgarized as a university or education. So this is something that's very important. And of course, success stories. I mean, if you do nothing, just telling the successes of others that have done it is enough drive for people to try to make it. So example of Karim, we need more and more of those so that people say, if they can make it, I mean, I can make it, why not? You know, so this is very key to get success stories and to get the next unicorn out of Lebanon, why not? Sorry. So, and then there's no excuse. I mean, there's no excuse for the students or the engineers or what have you, is that, I mean, it's the low cost to develop anything. So really, everything is low cost. I mean, software, open source, Arduinos, hardware, software is really, really at anyone's reach, and it's low cost. So no excuse. I mean, money, you can start with really, really low cost. So money is not an issue, at least when you start, at the start. So this is a favorable time for innovation. I mean, and even if you develop something, you put it on the App Store, you promote it on Facebook, etc. So it's really, really, and it reaches billions, you know, instantly, billions. And this is something that we did not have in our generation. I mean, our Michel, etc. I wish we had this back in our days, you know, where you have to go and sell, take carry and go and knock on doors and sell. This is there now. I mean, this is, think about it, and how you can use this and abuse it. So really no excuse for develop and to get it out there and outreach, and everyone can develop, can download it and buy it from anywhere in the world. Really, really crazy. And about the even more lucky, because as I said, there is even more capital than, there's more supply than demand. And here, I mean, I really mean it. It's really, there is lots of money to invest in good ideas in startups. Yeah, I mean, this is key. I mean, one part of making a startup successful is the funding, because there's the team, there's the product, etc. It's all of those. But money obviously is a hurdle, and it's there. It's there at all stages in the life cycle of a startup. An example is this landscape in Lebanon today. And this is more than $500 million of money to invest in startups at any stage on the company. So, so from early stage, from really from the idea stage to Series A, where you can raise $1 million, and here at this stage you have, you know, grants money, etc., 30K, etc. You have several accelerators, you have angel groups, etc., that can fund you here. You have 3 or 4 accelerators in Tripoli, you know, in Beirut. And here you have the funds, really you have funds that can inject up to $1 to $5 million in your idea or in your company. Here, obviously, it's no longer an idea. There's an idea at this stage, but all of these guys are pushing you further in the downstream to be the next Karim. So all of these guys are collaborating to find the next unicorn, honestly, because this is their aim, is to get the idea from here. It could be from the university, lab, or what have you, till really they exit here and to sell, to be bought by Karim, Amazon, etc. at this stage. So all of the, I mean, this is like, it's a huge amount of institutions, a lot, really a lot. I get lost, and this is not updated. Someone can tell me, you know, you forgot to add this, you forgot to add that. It's really not updated. So another disclaimer, I'm sure there are lots of entities that help and fund startups at any level. All right. Voila. So and let alone, so on top of funding, there are, you know, exhibitions and startup weekends and all these activities that go on, you know, hackathons and entrepreneurship competition, you know, Shuf Entrepreneur, Tripoli Entrepreneurs Club, you know, everywhere you go, there are support for entrepreneurs. And okay, these do not provide money, but I mean, there's activities, you go and you meet people, you network, you talk, etc. Because part of an entrepreneurship journey is to network, to make contacts, and, you know, to meet people, either to hire or to partner with or to find clients, etc. So you have to, the network is very important. Again, the media in Lebanon is starting to get interest in this. success. So we have at Télé-Liban, you know, a startup 331 type of program. MTV, they have the start on I think it's Sunday night or something. The press also talks about, you know, startups and accelerators that start, etc. Really now, it's interesting, but the press is starting to get the hang of it, because they understood that this is what makes a difference and this is what contributes to the economy and to create jobs. And I mentioned success stories, so I'll give you a couple of success stories that came out of university labs. Yeah, so I think both of them were from AUB. I don't know if you know about Rodi Tuner, that tunes guitars. The only automatic guitar tuner in the world. Lebanese startup, Rodi Tuner. The first goggle that measures your heart rate comes from a Lebanese startup, woman entrepreneur from AUB. And all of those went through the Stars of Science, Qatar Stars of Science Foundation, Stars of Science. Okay, so if these guys can make it, or girls, obviously, anyone can make it. هلا لازم احط رنا شميتلي بس انه ما as one of the success stories بس انه بس حكيت كفايه, that's enough. Next time, sorry. Okay. So parting thoughts. My last slide is really to invitation to entrepreneurship, because we need startup to solve problems. Startups, the only thing they do is solve problems. Yeah. So what better? I mean, lots of problems to be solved in Lebanon, and they create jobs. You know, what better stuff that we need? As in Lebanon, this is very very useful to solve problem and create jobs. You know, it's a win-win. And I like to quote in this, but you have to have l'envie d'avoir envie, as the late Johnny Hallyday said, to take the step of entrepreneurship. Voilà. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ohana. And our last speaker, last not least, Mr. Rodrigue Saab. He heads Saab Research and Development System, a technology-enabling boutique that equips scientists and engineers. Rodrigue is a former regional leader of the emerging market at National Instruments. He is a technologist and pioneered the smart grid application in 2007, the smart city in 2009, and advised clients in a variety of industry, including energy, defense, and academic research and teaching. In 2010, Rodrigue led an initiative to break the technology monopoly in the oil and gas leak detection solution through democratization and localization of the intellectual property. Rodrigue holds a senior executive leadership from Harvard Business School and a Master of Engineering from Université de Technologie de Compiègne, and a BS in Engineering, a Bachelor in Engineering from the Lebanese University. Rodrigue, I'm pleased to welcome you. Thank you.
They say we keep the best for the last. The last stay for the best. So, thank you for having me here. I'm very happy to basically attend to this event and to see the technology side, the educational side, the business side, and to put some thoughts as well. So we'll start with the numbers to put some picture about the potential. And as we probably have seen, or basically see every day, clean energy has been taken as a global goal. Everywhere you will see there is a local goal to generate more power, which means the whole supply chain of the opportunities related to generating power is available, which means engineers, who are the people that contribute to making this happen, have all these opportunities to work in. Telecommunication. There is always an advancement in telecommunication sector, which means the design of these systems, the testing of these systems, the deployment of these systems, the engineering of these systems, again, is available. That's another opportunity or sector that engineers can work in. Autonomous vehicles and robotics and mechatronics. that's another booming field. Which means the whole chain, the whole supply chain is impacted, and there is a lot of opportunity. Of course, the discussion about the number of devices that are connected and the data bandwidth needed to sustain and to be able to deliver on the analytics and the needed decisions. Again, the infrastructure is also developing to make this possible. Again, that's thanks to engineers. 2020, so again, we saw lots of targets and lots of numbers. And I'm gonna move a little bit to the business side, which is, why is everybody talking about the Industrial Revolution? Is there a business case? What's the business case? How big is it? What's the impact? And based on these numbers, we can see that we're talking here about what, $14 trillion of revenue from the industrial IoT only. And that's only the industrial IoT. And if we look at the other sectors that the IoT enables, you can see the size in each. Interestingly, there is no IoT curriculum. There's nowhere you can go and learn IoT. There are bits and pieces everywhere. The question is, and this is not in a specific sector, this is in every sector, from health to education, to controls, to automotive, to space, it's everywhere. And there is no curriculum even for it. And if we want to just look at a specific sector in that, we look at the operation and equipment optimization, which is really the field we focus on. And it's sized to be between $1.2 to $3.7 trillion globally by 2025. And again, when I look at this at a global level, and I look at the quality of engineers that we are graduating here in Lebanon, I am questioning the gap size and the readiness of these engineers of the future in being able to contribute to this economy. How fast can they learn? What does it take for them to really be able to contribute in this? Otherwise, they will be really left over or left behind. And the skills and the topics or the pillars in the IoT, which are again multidisciplinary, we're talking about big data, augmented reality, simulation, systems integration, additive manufacturing, and I believe many speakers have spoken enough in this conference and in many other conferences about each of them. The question is, this makes a combination, so the combination of these elements makes an IoT solution possible and makes it a reality to bring the value to the end consumer. I'm going to show you a quick demo. Can you please switch to the other screen? So to show you the value this brings to the industrial manufacturing, okay. So what you will see here is the augmented reality demo, which is basically a small pattern which my camera will now scan. And based on this, I will be able to connect this pattern to my machine. And this will give me real-time data. It will give me the actual coefficients and variables of my machine. It will give me the health of my machine. It will tell me on the floor what is wrong. And here we go. So once it scans, do we have a sound? Please. So now I have detected my machine. This could be my pump, my turbine, my compressor. Do we have a sound? Well, it's the output from the Apple TV, not from here, from the HDMI. So anyway, so this is my machine. I can click to see live data. And this is, maybe with this background, it is better. So now I'm seeing live data. These are my different variables. Imagine how much it takes to get this data to an operator in the control room. You have to call, you have to go. In large plants, you have to spend a lot of time to see this. Now, this is made possible on the fly. Now, the second thing that you can do in the augmented reality in the industrial side is really to teach or to guide the operator if there is a fault, which means you don't have to spend too much teaching and retaining experts who have been for a long time in the factory, because now you have a steps. And the list of steps, the machine will show you step by step what can you change and how to change every single component. Of course, you can go in. You can use any basically platform for that. It's an iPad or iPhone or any wearable device or any glass as well. Now we have changed the filter. And the last piece is the interaction, which means I can control the variables on the fly as well. So I can, if I have a robot or basically an input, I can also change that and see what behaves differently in my machine. Now, end of demo. Let's go back to the other. That's a basic demo. It takes few hours to few days, let's say, few days to be built after you have the digital twin. To connect that to the machine and to the variables. So there are basically some steps that are not so difficult to do. And going back to the startup, what does it take to really build a business to build such solutions? Do you need capital? No, there is no need for a capital. That's the capital. It's the brain, and it's the willingness and the motivation and the exposure. Looking at a regional level, from a market perspective, I believe the biggest term that we use or we hear every day, it's the term transformation. It's like everywhere. Everybody is transforming. Even countries are transforming. So the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is ongoing the biggest, it's like one of the massive transformations ever under the Vision 2030, under which they have launched the National Industrialization Program. And I was there at the launch. They have deployed, or basically announced, $460 billion of projects that are meant to localize many technologies, including military industries, manufacturing, in different sectors. Of course, they are undergoing lots of legalities to attract basically investments and startups to start and to build local solutions, especially in the technology sector, which, by the way, is supported and financed, and it's sized to be about $1.4 billion in the IoT only. Now, are you excited about IoT now? Okay, obviously. So again, this topic or this concept is applicable in almost every engineering field. And if we look back to the grand engineering challenges, I wouldn't even use the term challenges. I would use them as opportunities. Because engineers globally are the people who really turn the challenges into opportunities. And these are the areas, basically, whichever is your background, whether you are a biologist, you are a medical doctor, or you are a dentist, or in any field. Now you can contribute in your field by innovating and implementing and adopting IoT solutions in your field. And that's how you need, and really why you need to sustain and to maintain your competitiveness in the market. what's IoT? I believe that there is a lot of discussion about it, and again, we can see it from two lenses. One is the consumer side, the wearables, the changes at the residential level, at the home level, at the user perspective, and another one which is at the industrial side, which is about smart factories, the factory of the future concepts, infrastructure, water, power, energy, cars and smart cities, smart machines, robotics, all the things related to the industry. But the concept or the core is the same. The technology is almost the same. Now, to give you a very brief technical part, which I like, the basic component of an IoT is the ability to interact with signals, to acquire a signal and to generate a signal. Once you can do this first step, which is not difficult anymore, you can connect a system to another system, and you can program these systems to talk to each other. And that's how you build what is called the system of systems. Now, I hope this is simple. It's simplified for you. What this means, of course, there is a layer of software that needs to be implemented at each layer to implement the different algorithms needed to do what is needed in terms of decision-making, signal processing, and logging, and so on. Now, is this easy? No, it's not easy. How fast can engineers get to a level in which they can deliver something like this? And that's, again, the question of this conference is, how do we develop people and engineers? 2 minutes? Oh my God. Okay. So let's move. The pace of change is very quick, and we have to keep up. It's too fast that we're not able to understand how fast it is. When we look from an educational perspective, the rate of discovery is key, whether it is about students, researchers, and how fast they can be ready to discover. Again, that's another point, which is people will be basically graduating and doing things, they basically taking jobs they don't know what they are. That's a more comprehensive set of challenges, which I would say one of the most important one is the shelf life of the skills that you gain. Nowadays, it's 2.5 to 5 years at the best. Every 2.5 to 5 years, you have to reskill. Whatever you are learning today, you have to learn something new in the next 5 years. Otherwise, you're outdated. And that's really what we need to educate people is how to learn and how to continue to learn, not just what they know today. Another aspect I would like to highlight about Lebanon specifically is we always say, and we know for sure that the quality of education in Lebanon is of high caliber. But there are some facts that McKinsey report have brought to our attention, and I hope that people will basically look at this report and take an action, do something different. It is the country in which there is the least spending per student. It is the country in which the quality of education indicator is the least as well. And if we look at a regional level and at a global level, this is not promising. Because our competitive advantage, which we are always talking about, that the Lebanese are very educated and the Lebanese are very successful globally, with these indicators, now we have something to talk about that we have to call in action. Somebody has to do something differently, and we will not blame the government. Everybody is and can contribute to make this change. It's the full ecosystem. It's the full ecosystem of collaborators from industry, from educators, from business incubators, from community. Everybody can contribute and has to contribute. So the point here is it's a life learning thing. The mentality has to change. The shift in the engineering education has moved from lecturing to experiential and project-based learning. And that's also something that we need to look again at and see how we can endorse it and how we can enable it. And automatically that creates the additional skills related to the collaboration, to the team building, and to the other soft skills. Universities globally are taking this very seriously and transforming the way they teach, and even the whole curriculum. The whole curriculum is being changed. And I haven't really heard of much of these transformations going on here. So I'm not sure if that's happening, but I haven't heard much about that. That's another case which looks at the student satisfaction rate, which changes when you start to use such concepts. And I'm gonna basically, that's one way to basically make it happen is you map the courses to the topics based on each discipline, and you make this transformation plan. Basically, the way the education system is today is by disciplines, and the way these topics, the IoT topics, are also interconnected. The way to make this transformation is to connect between the two and to make a new curriculum that takes this into account throughout the whole educational path. Last, I will close with the point related to the personality. Which is when we hire and when employers hire, they don't hire for the skills. Of course, the skills are hygiene factor. They must be available for us to even look at someone, but we hire for the personality. We hire for the motivation. We hire for the passion. We hire for the fit. And these are the things that we need to look at. I would call a little bit, again, some concerns, but I wouldn't generalize. But I would say that the educational system needs to also take this into account when educating engineers, as looking basically at developing their mindset. Having the growth mindset is key to being successful. Success is not by how many engineers we have graduated or how many are employed, and even how many are entrepreneurs. It's how much they are making contribution back to the society. What's their impact? They could be successful individually, but if they don't make an impact in the society and share the knowledge and make a difference, there's no value. Thank you. I'm sorry? Oh, okay.
Just let me welcome Ms. Randa Jamali. Ms. Randa is CEO of Master Franchise Tumo in Lebanon and direct the office in Lebanon. She held executive and top management position at different places, and she is also lecturer at the University of Lebanon, so my university. I'm very happy. And she has an MBA degree from MIT Sloan School of Management and from LAU, actually. And of course, she has a certification from Cornell University. Ms. Randa, would you please, because we are lacking time, make a short introduction of yourself in a couple of minutes maximum?
Yes. Thank you for inviting me to be part of this esteemed panel. I'm very happy to be here today. I'll just take a few minutes, or 1 minute, 2 minutes actually, to introduce to you the Tumo Center for Creative Technologies. Now, we all know that we're at the brink of a revolution that's going to change the way we live, work, and relate. And this transformation is going to be in scale and complexity like nothing we've seen before. It brings with it lots of opportunities, like increased income levels, much better quality of life. It also brings with it many challenges, the most important of which is the disruption that it's going to bring into the entire industry and to the economy. There will be a profound change in the way we do business. And with it, there should be a profound way of changing the way we educate our kids. So previously, career readiness used to start at the level of the college, and college readiness starts at the level of the school. Today, college and work and life readiness will have to start at the level of the school. And this is where new programs such as the Little Engineer and the TUMO Center for Creative Technologies are growing around the world. They bring in a new set of learning priorities to the kids of the next generation. Now, TUMO is a newcomer to Lebanon. We've just started in BDD, but it's a concept that existed in Yerevan since 2010. It's an after-school program for kids between the age of 10 to 18, and it's a new kind of learning experience that provides that's at the intersection of technology and art, which means we give a number of skills, or we teach a number of skills from robotics to 3D development to game development, and integrated with filmmaking, photography, and many other music and many other artistic skills. So it's a combination of arts and technology. It is also a slightly innovative way of teaching, in the sense that it's based on an artificial intelligence platform, whereby it identifies the interests of the child and creates a path that is adapted to his interests and to his progression throughout the learning experience. Our learning experience is also based on 3 different levels or layers of education. So there's a section that relates to self-learning. Just 1 minute. There's a self-learning part whereby it relies a lot on self-learning, whereby the child will have to spend some time doing activities on his own in order to define his interests and to progress in what he's doing. And then he moves on to the next level, which is the workshop level, and it's an interactive process where he goes back from self-learning to workshop. And then the third element of our teaching is what we call a learning lab. Sorry. A learning lab whereby we bring gurus from around the world, let's say from Nickelodeon. We had 3 workshops so far. We brought in someone from Lego Robotics to give a robotics course. We brought in someone from Nickelodeon to do a toy design program. And we brought someone from Stanford to do an artificial intelligence workshop for the kids. So it's hopefully a new type of learning experience that's going to shape the teens of the next generation, hopefully. Thank you.
Okay. Let me start by saying it was an impressive session. Thank you all. And we have seen a lot of formal and very serious way of approaching a whole system, together. And very, very calm way of approaching it, saying there is nothing, we should not fear new technologies, but we should approach it in a very calm way, very French way, let's say, at the system level. We have seen a lot of care. Mainly I have heard Rodrigue with his little bit loud voice saying we would like to have an impact, return back to the society of this effort. We have Nicolas, who has been very careful about how to engage the students in new adventure for having small enterprises, SMEs, and even more startups that will create value, and new modes of learning, experimenting them in order to take the best advantage of what we have. My first question is, how do you think, at least for these 3, how do you think that we can integrate all these stakeholders inside one progress, one system that would progress towards a better target or more targeted objectives of development? Nicolas, you would like? Yes. How we integrate? السؤال إنه how do we integrate all the stakeholders, including the incubator that you represent and other stakeholders in this learning?
Yes. Yes. How? Good question. How? I've been. I don't know. I don't know. I know, but I've tried I'll give you an example. You know, Beirut was started by St. Joseph University. You know, it's like it's part of the St. Joseph University, yeah. But you know, to try to get you know, linkages between both was really a struggle at the beginning, because you have to get it. You know, people not to get it. And when you're a faculty or a staff, and you teach, khalas, this is your thing. You know, entrepreneurship is like very, very strange. You know, it's like so you have nothing to do with it. And so building these ties is very it's tough, really tough. I'll give you an example. And when I say I've tried it, you know, I've tried lots of stuff. So we opened up a class for entrepreneurship for the engineering school at UZIB. First year, 50 students came. Wow, wow, no, wow, we got it. Second year, like 30. Second year, like 20 or 15. Third year, no one showed up. ليه يا عم شو لسه؟ Students are more interested by the courses that give credits, you know, and they can pass and do the exams. خلصت يعني. This is fine, which is fine. So it's really hard, you know, really hard. Now there are lots. I told you about the competitions, you know, the MIT, all the stars of science, كذا. You have to beg the students to apply. يا أخي, please apply. إنه دخيلكم يا أخي شو خسرانين. Please apply. يعني really, it's a hassle. It's a hassle. So fine, ما بينهم, fine, okay. But you know, there are those that are outliers, you know, and they play the game. But for the most, it's tough. It's really tough. It's really tough. And it doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. We should always keep at it and try to get students, you know, to think outside the box and create startups, etc. But I mean, culturally, it's not there. I mean, if you look around, you know, you say, you know, and الحالة وتعتير, etc. And it's really it's tough when you look around you. And even at home, no one encourages you to do a startup. You know, the parents, I mean, spend on their kids, on their education. They won't spend it on their startups. You know, it's a cultural thing for us Lebanese, unfortunately, fortunately and unfortunately. But then, so we're against culture. We're against geopolitical stuff that's going on. It's tough. It's tough. But people need to know that there are alternatives. I showed you all these blocks that are there, willing to help and surround. Just use them and abuse them. If you have an idea and you think that you're going to be the next unicorn, come talk to us.
Something that I can throw on the table is the professors today at universities are measured based on how many papers they publish. They are not measured based on how many industrial problems they solve. We don't see a relationship between industry and academia. And because of the fact that in Lebanon there is no industry, or at least a big industry, this is a little bit challenging to accomplish, but I don't think it's impossible. It is possible. Our students that are basically coached by professors who are teaching them that they need to graduate and go to the US or to France to continue or to pursue their master's education. They are not connected to the industry to get the problems from the industry, the regional industry. Let's not talk about the local, the regional industry. And there are many issues that can be solved. Lebanon can specialize in specific fields. We don't need to solve, and we cannot solve every problem, but we can decide which problems we need to do. We can decide to do centers of excellence in certain areas in IoT. It could be signal processing, it could be image inspection, it could be artificial intelligence, machine learning, and so on. There are so many topics we could pick. I invite professors and universities to look at making centers of excellence related to the IoT and to outreach industries and explore ways they can solve these issues. But they will not do that if they are not measured. So the motivation question needs to come back to the picture. What is the professor's job? That's a view.
So at the fault of the professors.
No.
Okay. No. Yeah. Yeah, it's complicated. Okay, I will not reply now. So Okay, I am an expert in Erasmus Plus, so we talk a lot about learning. We don't like education as expert. We talk a lot about learning. The final product is the learner. The learner must learn. It's not about teaching, not about I am a little bit lost. You show us that we can put like Lego to solve a lot of problems, and then you say we need a professor to do IoT, which is IoT is a solved problem for professors. With all due respect, IoT is not a real problem. But anyhow, what is a real problem is geostatistical studies. What is a real problem with IoT is integrating data, is solving the data that came after. But IoT as such, collecting sensor, for us is a solved problem. But I can argue on in that. Let me go back to the learner. What we need, I go back to Anne-Marie. What do we need as a final product? This learner, how we can make him or her, her first and then him, profit from the learning environment the best possible in order to have a final product that is really satisfying the criteria.
First, I will give an answer to the previous question because it is very interesting for us because we ask in France also to develop entrepreneurship, and we understand that sometimes it's because of the teachers. But we have seen a model very interesting. It is in Flanders, you know, in Leuven, in Ghent, in Brussels, where teachers are also entrepreneurship, and so we saw that it develops the spirit of entrepreneurship in students when teachers, professors have societies and companies and have developed their own business. So we now in France, we think that it could be a good point to encourage professors to develop jobs for themselves and then go with students to develop in projects some activities. So about learners, you know, all students will not do the same thing, and we have to develop the fit to individuality of people. You say it's not skills but a personality, and people will be different. And we have to detect, and it's a real great job, the differences between when you make a project. This project is technical skills, but it's also soft skill. And we manage the project. We try to make students develop by themselves the management of project. So one is the leader who has another role in the project, and so that this role is all the roles are well fitted to the personalities of people. But it is not an idea to make all entrepreneurs, all developing digital skill, but I think that everything is in all. We must make students taste the different thing. It's very important. You cannot say, I don't want to go in company if you never went in company. It's very important to make at least one experience. And then you have to let all the people be in their role. And I think even in this new society, if all have the knowledge of what happens to the other one, each people can find its place.
So diversity and differentiated learning, yes. What do you think about differentiated learning?
We're very big proponents of differentiated learning. So I think the future of learning is going to be much more about flexibility and adaptability and personalization. So there's going to be a lot of personalization in the way the whole learning is going to be adapted to the pace and the interests of different people. And this is why it creates differentiation as well. There's also this interdisciplinary learning that is also crossing all boundaries between different disciplines. So technology and art are now mixing, design and engineering are now mixing. So there are no more formal boundaries between disciplines, which is going to shape a lot the way our young children are going to learn. A very important element as well is the social and the emotional aspect of the learning. The human skills are going to be much more important these days than they were in the previous. Anything that machines will not do are going to have exponential value in the future, and therefore our children should be equipped to relate to their environment, relate to the situations they have at hand, to have critical thinking, problem solving, creative thinking approaches, so that they can better be able to be thriving members of the community. And last but not least, I think entrepreneurship is going to be a very important element of our education. Everybody will become an entrepreneur in one way or the other. They will have to learn how to create new opportunities. They will have to learn how to make use of scarce resources and how to deliver value at the end of the day.
Thank you. Okay. I think we can open the floor now for question reactions. Yep.
Thank you very much for the presentations. I think one of the main objectives of this conference was to look into the future and see how university education related to engineering and technology will be going in what direction. From what I have heard and learned from the lectures of yesterday and today, I formulated the hypothesis, and I am putting this hypothesis a little bit in extreme measures in order to see things how far we can go, so that we can set up a strategy for the short and medium term. From what I have heard and what I learned those few days, I can see the university, as was just mentioned, the barriers between faculties will go down. Engineering education itself, I see it to shrink to the very minimum at the undergraduate level. The growth will be more in the arts and sciences, pure sciences, pure math, computer science, and social sciences that will become more and more important. And of course, the business side. Putting all these things together because of artificial intelligence, the machines will be doing a lot of specific jobs much better than humans can do now. So there will be a part of those jobs will be erased. Maybe other new jobs will be in their place. So even on the technical side, if you want to talk about vocation training, maybe a lot of those vocations will be replaced by some kind of robots. Now, putting all this together, I think human beings will have more leisure time than they have now. And I want to copy something from Calum Chase, who was lecturing a month ago on this same thing. He said probably instead of vocational training, we need vacational training. So I would like to hear the opinion of the panel. Do they see things the way I see it or differently?
Again? Will the barrier between faculties, between disciplines fall? And the second question, what about luxury time and have more time and less time for work? So change of change of the value of work. The value of work is being transformational.
Yeah, I can tackle both. Some thoughts. So barriers, yeah, obviously they have to. So example, have multidisciplinary teams coming from engineering, business, marketing, etc. This is key. This is key, and no question about it. So this is something that has to happen. And it's not easy, and I know, because Kamel, it's like, each faculty and the dean, it's a bit hard to see sensitivities between faculties, but this has to happen, anyways. So yes, it says. On the second is the leisure time. I read once an article, how to, so now instead of hiring someone, you know, it's like the taxi. You have the Uber model. You have the Uber model for HR, where you know, now there's no work. You don't hire. You just hire as an Uber. You know, you hire a worker on Uber, and so you can. And so same as in Uber, you know, he goes to the office with a click of a button. He opens up the app and he's in the office, you know, and he can go out of the office with a click of a button. So same for the work, you know, it can be that, no, and if the work is as a service, you know, as taxis now is as a service and everything is as a service, same would be that, you know, I can go to work as a service and click, and now I'm in the office, you know, and then when I don't feel like it, I unclick and I have my recreational time, maybe. So this is like in 2030 or 2040 or 2050, my wife.
I think that in this vacation time, we forget sometimes that we have passion for your work, and this will continue. And I think that if I am here retired for some years now and going on making research and speaking to young people, it's because of the passion I have for my job. So this will continue, and I hope so, because you know, if you have no passion in what you do, you don't stay a lot of time. But what I find very interesting, because I am a musician too, is the fact that when I was studying, people say stop doing music because you have to be engineer, professor, and then I had to go back to music after. And now the fact that in all the skills, this is very developed, art music, and in French schools such as INSA, develop very much artist, ingénieur, sportif ingénieur, and that talents are more recognized than before. And I think that people will be best in their skill, in their in their skin, doing this than before, when you have to stop, and now you are a complete people.
Just remember something. If you can, there's a bestseller book called The 4-Hour Work Week. So how you can work just 4 hours in a week. You've read it, you know it? No. So there are 2 editions, I think. So yeah, have a look if you like vacations and whatever. So you can optimize and work in 4 hours and the rest take vacations. Voilà. 4-Hour Work Week. Tim Harris or something, I think. It's a nice, good read.
It's not a question, it's just a comment to agree on what Mr. Saab said about what makes a professor a professor. And actually, I find this very problematic, especially in our field, like architecture or all the professional. I mean, we are meant to produce someone with professional skills. And strangely, we are being promoted and evaluated according to how many papers and where are these papers published, as if the graduates are all to be researchers, which is very strange. I mean, I happen to be a practitioner as well as being a professor, but my practice is not any part of my evaluation as a professor, which is very strange. Maybe 20 or more years in Egypt, we had the system where the faculty were promoted in architecture according to their project, their professional achievements, which I think was very much more proper, because we are meant to transmit our experience, our skills that we have to our students, not the theoretical knowledge. Or I mean, this is not actually what we meant to do in teaching profession. But I'm not in these new systems of global university systems. Now we are only promoted or evaluated according how many paper, and you published a paper in a Q whatever journal, in an international referee journal, and etc., which doesn't make real sense to me. So I do very much agree that there is something wrong in there.
It's a comment. بتفل انت عارف بتفل انت.
Hi. Mrs. Jamali, I have a question for you. And in light, I think, of a lot of the discussion that's been happening today, and in light of what you said, somehow that this learning or educational experience is shifting even lower than the university level to start to happen at the school level. So almost being able to train students at the multidisciplinary skill set, even as they are still in high school. And the fact that, you know, also in relation to this idea of differentiated learning, open learning models that are now everywhere on online platforms. Do you really foresee that somehow these multiple learning environments that are happening early on will potentially replace these bigger institutions, higher institutions of learning that are currently the model of education? Is this somehow leading towards them turning obsolete?
I wouldn't be sure of this. Honestly, there is still some merits to the traditional way of doing things. So the traditional learning will always have its own merits. What these will come to do is complement it in a major way. So they will come to bring in new skills that would complement the traditional learning in many ways. So I doubt that one could replace the other. However, even traditional learning will evolve in a different way, and it needs to be much more engaging, much more interactive. So it will evolve in its own way, but it will not be replaceable by the new modes of learning and the new technologies that are happening right now.
As we are also in the conclusive mindset and reflecting on not only your interventions but on the overall conference, I think we need to be looking into the programs, education programs, and following up on Dr. Naqash's point. An important characteristics of of our programs have to be resilient, has to be capable to transform themselves and very quickly, because it's not a question of luxury, it's a question of necessity. And the more we start to realize this, I think the faster we would be able to change. However, let me pinpoint two, I would argue, challenges that we seem to be jumping and ignoring. One of which is the legislative dimension. How is it that the Ministry of Higher Education would be able to help not only initiate but at least support those transformations, and that should happen quickly rather than taking a long time. That's in a dimension that could be a part and parcel of the recommendation of the conference. The other challenge, actually, there is what I call the technological divide between the G8 countries and the rest of the world. What is it that we are able to contribute? How is it that we'd be able to bridge gaps that actually are present on the basis of the investment of these countries on one side, and the fact that problems that are being addressed on the basis of the industrialized countries, and we are not industrialized in the first place. So you see, maybe our problems are shared, but we don't have that particular environment that helps sponsor that particular direction. To reflect on that, in the war, we were able, I mean, and somebody actually talked about how we were able to, actually Naib talked about that. And during the war, we were able as architects to progress through learning the software. But that was because it was pirated. You know, and this is because of the soft technology. I don't know whether with hard technology, whether that soft technology continues to be the main operator or not. My last comment, I mean, looking into the entrepreneurship. The entrepreneurship has to be integrated into the program. It should not be something that is peripheral to the program as it stands today.
I want to comment about, I'm not blaming or basically putting the challenges on the professor. It's a system. It's a system, and I believe the university ranking is the driver. If we would like to really have a high-ranking educational system and universities that are that are ranked at a global level, it's an aspiration that for it to be achieved, there should be an innovation element, which is industrial relations, centers of excellence, and then, I mean, there are many models that could be adapted by the university strategic leadership to basically endorse and implement. The professor's job is not, I'm not in fight with the professor. I mean, he's doing his job, he's doing a great job. But the system is not, at least I would say in Lebanon, it's not enabling this sort of collaboration. But we have seen this very successful models elsewhere. And we would like to really to see it here in Lebanon. That's my...
Yeah. This is true, I do agree, Yep. Okay. No. Well, just a few words. I'm not sure that that the regulator today is capable of impacting a lot the system. I'm really not sure. I am not also sure that there is one model. For me, the university is a learning environment, and the learning environment needs researchers who are at the most advanced levels of knowledge. Needs also some actors who are close to the industry to see what's going on and what problems to solve. Need also someone who are close to the student and know what are their expectations. But at the end, what they need mainly is to take care of the student, the learners, student at young age, but also student in continuous education and lifelong learning. And they need to take care of those by creating an environment that is promoting good learning, promoting acquisition of skills and competences that make the learners capable to face the challenges of real life and to make the society progress. A lot of things need to be done also at the level of ethics, communication, multilingual. All these are very important. But I am not for a formal model where at least in Lebanon, it's too much difficult. I know that you are impressed by Anne-Marie, but France has another historical background. The system is really well structured, and our system in Lebanon is not structured. It would take years to structure the system in Lebanon. So I'm not sure that we can go this way, saying, let us put tools that are very strong and promote. But we can say, yes, we need to give hints, but we have been talking about laws just now. And the law on Quality Assurance Agency happened. I have participated in the writing of this law. It is in the parliament since 2011. We don't hear about it. So I am not sure that the regulator will be strong enough. But what Anne-Marie has presented is pushing the system through the CTE. CTE is the equivalent of ABIT in France. So it can push things. In Lebanon, how can we manage to have a regulator? We need to be in the competition. I think what Roderick is saying, the competitive environment might push us. But also there is something to be done by the order of engineers, defining the profile of the new engineers, helping to say where is the engineering sector going in Lebanon in particular, because whatever happened, we know that we have a share of our students that are going outside Lebanon, but we hope that we have a significant share that remain in Lebanon, and we would like to have an idea where this sector is going on. In an in-depth work, not just by seminar. I think this also need to be a recommendation to say, no, I'm not the animator of this session. I'm just okay. So we need to have an in-depth work with some data, some information, saying the sector is evolving in this way and probably need to evolve in that way. But work that is in-depth, like any professional organization does in general. We need data. We don't have data about the profession itself, and the profession need to be organized also in order to support each other. So if you agree that Roderick is right, that we need to have efforts from our side, and I do agree, and everyone is right here, of course, but also the order need also to have an in-depth after this very successful year, probably the next mandate need to look how the profession is organized, the structure of the profession, how it is evolving. Things like that are very important, I think, in order to have a scientific way of approaching the problem. Yeah. Any other comment? No?
I think you have two solutions. Or either you do like in Russia, where Putin decided to build another university different from other, which is Caltech, and he give much money to develop Caltech and say to the other, you are nothing, but it creates much tension. Or in China with Shenzhen, because you go to Shenzhen, it's exactly like you would imagine university should be, but the other one have no money. Or you bring all people of all university to us. Yes, and I think in France it's the way we have chosen.
The last word. The last word for the last conference, for the last session.
No, I have no last word, but I really should thank first all the members of the scientific committee and all our guest speakers. It was really a fascinating year. I learned a lot, and really I'm so impressed with the talent and with the level of professional engineers that we have in this country, and in the same time we are not really benefiting from all the know-how that they have. Thank you so much, and have a great year. Thank you.
فكرة ايه برافو عليك.
And architecture, sure.
بدك إعادة تأهيل.
هجم علي.